Welcome to Creating a Life in Music. My name is Mike Salo. I'm a guitarist and music educator from Minneapolis, Minnesota in the U.S., and I want to know how other musicians make their living, how they got there, how they sustain it, and most importantly, the insights and tips they may have for the rest of us. I interview musicians from all over the world, from various parts of the music industry, to break down the question, how do I do music full time? So join me as we discover the many different ways to create a life in music. If you're a guitar player who's ever wanted to attend music college but couldn't because it's too expensive or too far away, or maybe you're just beyond that point in your life and you're just too busy with your own family and your own career to commit to something like that, I would highly recommend going and checking out fretboardbiology.com. At only $29 a month, Fretboard Biology takes out all the guesswork, putting the right things in the right order. It's highly structured, highly organized, college-level guitar program designed by one of the top guitar educators on the planet, Joe Elliott. Joe was head of the guitar department at McNally Smith for a number of years, where he designed the entire guitar curriculum, as well as being head over at Musicians Institute in Hollywood for many, many years. He knows what you need to know. And you can get 50% off your first month when you go to fretboardbiology.com/register-salo, my last name, that's S-A-L-O-W. So fretboardbiology.com/register-salo. Yeah, man, it's good to meet for the first time.
Likewise. Yes, sir.
Yeah, dude. So I know it's interesting. I've been doing these, and some people so far I've known at least a little bit. I've known most people I've had on, or at least met. Last week I had on Brett Garcett, and that was crazy. I don't know if you know of Brett. He's a Australian legend. And that was very interesting because that was the first person I've had that I never actually had met, but like we had corresponded.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's kind of like us. Like, I feel like we've talked just a little bit because you did Till. And I was like, so one of the reasons I did Till was because when I was approached by another company, and then Till approached me a little bit later, and they mentioned names, and your name came up. I was like, I know who that is. I was like, I follow him.
Yeah. Yep.
Or at least I don't know if I followed you at the time, but I was like, I see him everywhere. Like, I know who that guy is.
Cool.
And I was like, and he crushes. So that's when I hit you up, and I was like, hey man, is this worth it? Is this the way to go? Right. And you're like, yeah, dude, it's great. And you got back to me so fast. I was like, oh, Jude's a nice guy.
Dude, I appreciate that. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing the Till thing. I'm a big geek, so I love to, just geek out on production, talk music. And so what a great way to just like, it's crazy you can make money doing that, but even just that aside, even money aside, it's just like great that you can hop on the internet for an hour. And I'm talking like someone in 2002 or something. It's not so old, but it's great that you can hop on and literally just geek out with people around the world from wherever they are. I don't want to ever be too used to that. Like, that's an incredible thing, So. Yeah.
And with the way AI is now coming out of the woodwork and doing insane stuff, it's like, I have this like, that's a whole nother conversation, but yeah, it's only a matter of time before things get even wilder as far as correspondence online and stuff like that. Well, you may be doing that type of thing in some sort of virtual universe. But we'll see how that goes. So tell me about yourself, because I know, like I said, even the people I've known for a while, I know them through social media. I have friends that I've known through social media for a long time, but I actually don't really know anything about them.
Sure.
Why don't you start?
It's pretty normal.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
yeah, which is weird because like there's people I'm like, I've talked to you for years and I had no idea that's what you actually did for a living.
What's even worse is you don't even know their name, you know their handle.
Your name is Jude Smith, correct?
That's my name, but there's some people who go by like their musician handle, and I'm like, what's that guy's name again?
Yeah, dude. And I had a buddy of mine, Jake Wilson from the UK, and he does Jam Track Central and a bunch of other stuff. And we just met kind of randomly through friends. We met at NAMM and hung out, and he's a great guy. And I had him on, and I was like, yeah, so you're doing the social media thing and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no. He's like, actually, that's not what I do. He's like, he plays like the West End. He plays in London, like Broadway. So London's Broadway is called like West End or West, something like that.
Okay. Okay.
And that's what he does for a living. Like, he's the Broadway guy in London. And I was like, what?
Oh, wow.
I had no idea.
That's cool. So that's really cool.
Yeah. So the whole idea with this whole podcast is to, it's essentially I'm having a bunch of guitar players on right now, but the idea here is to give people insight on what it is like to do music as a living in whatever facet that means. Like, so everyone has, so many people have so many different ways of making music a living, whether that's like doing one thing very well, or if it's doing many things very well, or it's teaching, or it's gigging, or it's touring, or it's working in like production or what have you.
Right.
And many people do just these interesting combinations. And I think it's really great for people who don't know, or people who want to know how to do it, to see all the various options. And because I think I used to teach at a college, music college, and sometimes the students would get very hung up on like, I can only do this thing. And then they wouldn't realize that, no, like everyone there's super hyper successful people, and you can name one after the next, after the next, after the next. And like each of their lives will be completely different. Right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I want is, could you tell me a little about yourself? Like, what's your backstory? Like, did you grow up around music? Did you go to music school? Is it something that was part of your family, or was it more, I like to do it, my friends like to do it, so I picked it up? Because I know everyone has a different story. So where did it start?
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Nashville, still here. So obviously growing up in a musical city is a huge blessing, and a huge benefit to be around that caliber of talent here.
Totally.
That just like forces you to step up your game a little bit, so I think I've been really thankful to be, here in this water, so to speak. And, so yeah, I grew up in a big family. I'm the fifth of 6 kids. Jeez. Big family, big creative family, stay up late kind of family. Very entrepreneurial, creative. And my dad was in the music industry in the 80s and 90s. So, and his dad was in copyright law. My mom is an author. And just creativity definitely runs in my family. So there was guitars around. My dad was a songwriter as well. Music was very, always in the house. They raised us right on the 70s greatest hits record, CD package that they bought. We would go on road trips, and they would have a 10 disc set of all the best hits from 70, 71, 72, 73, all the way to 79. So I like was raised on that. Grew up playing Guitar Hero and like fell in love with all those old classic songs, so that like I had kind of the perfect environment for, just getting brought up on the good stuff, so to speak. So, so started playing music really young, hitting stuff like most people do, just kind of banging on pots and pans as a kid and whatnot. Definitely something that came very natural to me. Grew up playing at church a lot too. That's such a great place, like just to have an encouraging atmosphere of people who are like, you mess up and it's like not the end of the world, and in a great way, you're playing for something greater than yourself, so that's a really great thing that I learned from music is like, okay, maybe I can do this, but is it the time for it in this conversation of music? Is it time to show off here? Because sometimes the answer is yes, but sometimes the answer is no, like serve the music, obviously different in church setting, you're serving God, but in that instilled in me this conviction of, okay, when is it time to speak, in music, and when is it time to let the other guys speak? And when is it time to provide a service, or when is it time to, be flashy and do the thing that, is fun, but there's a time for everything. So that really taught me a lot growing up that way. Around 18, I put up 18 or 20 or so. I put up my first EP that got me some shows and whatnot, started playing around town and whatnot. And that grew even from there, getting to play outside of Tennessee. So that was really good. And somewhere along the way, started investing more in social media. And around like 2019, that's when my platform started to really grow. I did this video with a buddy of mine, Kurt Henderson, who at the time had a really growing fan base on Instagram. And he and I did a video, and that video like blew up within a week. And all these people that I have followed started following me. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like just what can happen if you, get on the right pages. That was really the thing with Instagram. It still is kind of the thing, although the algorithm is kind of the king now on Instagram. But the key back then was kind of getting the attention of certain pages to repost your content. And so I got the attention of certain pages through some of the content I had made and some of the friends that I'd made along the way. And that really started to grow my platform in 2019, and went from 2,300 or something followers to 100,000 followers in a year. It was wild.
Crazy.
And opened so many doors, dude. It was so crazy. I had grown up playing, making YouTube videos as a kid as well. So I have that video editing skill. And so that served me well now in this content age of being able to showcase my musical passion through video, which content is king. So being able to do that was really timely, really great. And being able to, use that as a vessel to communicate my deeper passion, which is music, songwriting, being an artist. So yeah, that was 2019. And then in 2020, let's see. That was about 2019. And around there, I put out an EP called Groove In. And that was kind of the follow up of the first thing that I did. And since then, it's just been like, it's been surprising me how much I've been getting into the content thing. And I've got my ears up about this even to this day, like how content really emerging and proving itself to be a respectable medium for creativity. And it's an art form, really. I think we all can see now that it's not just some fad that, is going to go away soon. Like content is really the way that we interact with each other, and especially short form content. So I have learned actually recently, like, wow, like, I used to struggle with, man, like I know I'm an artist, I'm a songwriter, I'm writing songs, but like, I kind of felt a little illegitimate at times, knowing that a lot of my hustle was in the short-term content. But it's really shown me, I've really come to my senses a little bit as far as like realizing how powerful content is. So much so that most of the marketing budget for businesses nowadays is marketed toward, okay, how can we get on TikTok? How can we get on Instagram? So on and so forth. So yeah, content is something that really surprised me, but that's just, I think, that was a smart move of being aware of, okay, how is humanity connecting? And honestly, the answer is we're all on the toilet sending each other videos, like sending each other stuff. So how can I get myself in there and not live in the past? And I mean, it's funny, but it's true. Like how can I display what I'm doing in a modern way? That's something that not a lot of artists want to do. And I still have to get myself to, I have to kind of correct myself because I can be a nostalgic person and want to live in the past and be like, this is what worked. I'm a huge fan. All of my heroes are guys from the past, minus a few guys. But, I look at the way that guys like maybe George Benson did it in the 60s and 70s. Like he made records and toured. That's how he did it, and that still works today. That's still a tried and true method. But like today, there's such an interesting opportunity with content. And that being an art form and a way to connect with people and express your musicianship or your artistry, that has frustrated people, including myself at times. But I've come to have I've changed my tune on how frustrated I used to be with content and realizing, wow, like, no, this is actually the way that people are connecting. And who am I to say that like, oh, this is just something that's going to blow over? Like clearly it's not. So yeah, short form content is something that's emerged through over the past couple of years. And I've been realizing like, wow, like, and I've been thankful that I kind of have a natural leaning toward that as being a video guy plus a music guy. That's really benefited me in this time. So yeah, just been doing that the last couple of years, still working on songs and staying busy producing and songwriting here in Nashville. And definitely content has joined the songwriting and the artistry as another third of the circle, so to speak. So yeah, that kind of brings us up to present day.
If you're a guitar player or bass player, you should really have a copy of Guitar Pro tablature software. I've been using Guitar Pro for like 15 years, and I really can't live without it. At this point, it's sort of an industry standard within the guitar education realm, and it's really easy to use. You can make all your licks and write out all your songs, and you can actually use it in conjunction with ultimateguitar.com, where you can download Guitar Pro files and learn all your favorite songs. So I couldn't recommend this software enough. And if you use the code MikeGP at checkout, you can get 10% off your copy of Guitar Pro 8. That's Mike, MikeGP at checkout, guitar-pro.com. Yeah, man, I think it's an interesting thing. I have a lot of friends here who don't do any content creation and they don't have desire to necessarily. And I have others who ask about it, or I have others who really want to get into it. And there's this weird, I have found, not from everyone, but from certain people, it's this thing I've noticed where it's like, well, I don't want to have to be doing that. Yeah. I would rather be gigging and touring, which totally get it. Like I totally get it.
Go do it. Yeah.
Go do it. Of course. For me, it's always been like, I guess I've always been a business minded person. So for me, doing the online stuff and doing content and everything, it was just a piece of the puzzle that needed to occur. And it took me a long time to finally realize like, how I needed to be doing it in order to, you know, move ahead in business and in life, because it is a business, the music industry, and it should be treated as such. And I think there's so many people who have a hard time with that notion that it is business and that there are these different facets that maybe we all need to be taking part of. Like we're entrepreneurs, we're music entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And if you can act as such, I think you'll start, you provide yourself with more success because you start to do all these entrepreneurial things, which bring in, you know, many different ways of being able to succeed and let alone just the content stuff alone there. I know there are many people who like just do the content thing and that's not what I do. You know, if it got to a point where that made a lot of money and I could do that, it's one of those things where you're like, maybe I would do that. Like, sure. Maybe I would do, you know, insert name. I don't know. Like there's plenty of people. I don't know if Rick Beato is gigging much anymore, if he just does content for a living. But like insert someone like him where it's like, I suppose if the content was paying really well, maybe I would just do that. Yeah. I don't know.
And the crazy thing is that nowadays it is like, I mean, my, you know, buddies of mine are literally their whole living, you know, they moved to the States to do that. They're crushing it. You know, it's pretty wild. And you know, I think obviously that's part of what I mean by like, that is wrapped into the, understanding of knowing that content is here and people are connecting that way. But I think for me, I mean it from a sense of like, okay, how do I reach people where they're at? Like, how do I benefit them in their life with my art? And like, that's my vessel that I see it as, but also, like definitely, you know, like, monetizing and whatnot. It's insane. Like that's a pretty insane incentive to get into it. Cause I think everyone is doing it. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. I guess, you know, I mean, monetizing aside, I think what I'm trying to say was it's kind of a mixture of that plus what you were saying of like, this is how I reach the people that I need to be reaching. So, or one of the ways. So how can I meet them? And that's, going through the social media stuff and the short form content in general, in specific is, it's kind of where I resonate right now. Right. I would like to get the longer form stuff. It's just, I need to actually work it into my schedule in a real way. And I haven't figured out a way to do that at the moment, with other commitments and everything, but I would love to start doing that. And so we bring you back to the first one you made. That's the first one that blew up. Was that intentional, or were you guys like, let's just make this thing for fun and see what happens? Or were you like,
I don't know if it's ever
blow up?
What do you mean? Like, was it intention? Did we intentionally blow it up? You mean, or
no? Did you intentionally go like, let's make something that we would see as doing very well? Or were you like, let's just make a fun video?
No. We just wanted to jam. We I believe it was This Christmas by Donny Hathaway, which did two guitars, just, you know, one of us playing the chords, one of us playing the melody, and just having fun. You know, that's the cool part of like, you know, just connecting with people and wanting to share something. This has been a big conviction of mine, wanting to share something that we deem as valuable. You know, so like, how am I going to stop someone from scrolling through the endless abyss of content and go, I want to watch this? The way that you do it is you put the value into it and you say, hey, this is something I'm sharing because I have got it to a point, whether it's through rehearsal, whether it's through editing it to where it's just right. It's something worth value. And hopefully by you continuing that reputation, people start to trust your brand, whatever you want to if you want to call it that, trust you as a content creator to go, this person is funny, whatever it is, good at what they do. I love their licks, and they follow you for that because they know that you've delivered and you've given them a precedence to where you deliver a certain caliber of content or music or whatever it is. So the key, and that's a business, you know, conviction that you have to have. I mean,
provide value.
Content aside, provide value to someone's life, and they're gonna pay you for it. They're gonna show up, you know. So be good at what you do, but remember, it's about offering people it's offering them something. It's not, hey, please listen to my new single. It's hey, I've put a lot of work in this, and if you build it, they'll come.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it brings me. I was going to mention earlier this whole idea of uh, having all these things be part of the career. So I've seen. So you do gig quite a bit outside in Nashville, or
Yeah,
seen a lot of videos you gig in Nashville. And I
yeah,
don't know if
definitely
that's
have.
something that happens all the time, or if is that a consistent thing,
Yeah,
or
I definitely have a lot in the past. Since COVID, I've been producing and writing a lot more.
okay.
Been doing some content stuff. Still have some plans to get back to that for sure. But at the moment, it's been a really, it's been a pretty, I kind of call it a hermit season. I've just been like writing and producing a lot from home, and co-writing with other people, which is something I've not done a lot of in the past. But it was really interesting. I thought that the season kind of started during COVID. So still working toward that, still kind of figuring out where, I'll reintroduce that, but, I do love to play live, but that's kind of something that's, kind of on the back burner for the moment.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're doing. So you're producing. Is that your stuff, or is that other people's stuff? Are you working with a lot of other artists that you're producing their records or singles, or?
Yeah, so I do produce quite a bit here. For the past year, I was actually working on a worship project with my church, Eastgate Worship, here in Nashville. So we were doing that for most of 2022. I had my focus on that pretty heavily that year. I still feel like it's 2022. I have to remember it's last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was doing that last year. And yeah, just put a single out with two friends of mine, Mikey Jose and Skylar Capri. So we just did a single for Christmas a couple weeks ago. For me, a lot of my focus lately in this past year and a half has been a lot of the writing, and then doing content as well for other brands and whatnot. So that's taken up quite a bit of my time. But this year specifically, I'm really excited because I feel like I've kind of been in a little bit of a hiatus, kind of like doing a lot of hermit writing, a lot of producing and whatnot. But I'm really excited this year. I feel like it's time for me to put out like another EP, maybe another album. So I'm starting writing for that this month, and that's going to be on the agenda for this year.
Very cool. Are you doing much in the work in the lines of teaching? I know you're doing the till thing. Is anything else that do you take on private lessons, or do you just do the till classes, or?
I don't really advertise myself. So I have to be careful with that because I do enjoy it, and there's obviously like it would be it would be an easy way to make some money on the side. But for me, I just have not tried to, that's not where I want to end up. And so I've tried to be really strict with myself to say, no, though I could do that, I'm not wanting to invest my energy into that because I want to grow this thing over here, my artistry and my content creation. And so that's where I've tried to like only step into that with my toes and not like, try to do it in a way that communicates that, hey, I'm a lessons guy now.
Yeah.
But the thing I like about Till is that they kind of feature artists and people in the industry who are already doing it, and they allow for them to connect with students, and the platform is so great. So I think for me, it's been really cool to do that and kind of offer it as like hey, like I'm doing this, professionally. So why don't we just like have a class where we just talk about what I do, for my work. And to me, that seems a little less like, hey, I'm becoming lessons guy now, but it feels more like, hey, this is someone who's in the industry, who's doing this for a living. Let's just get together for a few weeks and I'll just show you a 1 hour
class, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll just show you 1 hour a week, how to do it. So, and it's been insane, like so cool. I can share my session over the internet, have it be a stereo feed. I can show them how I'm panning and everything. It's like, it just blows me away. Again, I never want to get like too used to the technology we have. It's just like, it's so cool. You can do that,
Yeah. So, so did you attend any music school, or are you just born and raised self-taught and then continued into the real world?
Yeah, I did a year of college at MTSU. It was just gen eds, and I think I studied one time. And then after that, I was just like, it became so apparent to me that the thing that I was most inclined to in life was music. That's my gift. I know that's the way that I'm going to make a living. And so if I was going to do that, the way you do that is by meeting people, getting your hands dirty, and just, connecting with people and getting, your foot in the door wherever you can. And so I knew that college was not really going to benefit me like pretty soon after I went. So I decided to drop out after a year. When I was a little kid, I took piano lessons for like 3 years, and that really benefited me. When I have kids, they are going to learn piano first, not the drums, not the guitar. Piano is like the home base of all music, and it's very, linear as far as how you can understand the grand staff, you know, from bottom to top, or, you know, from left to right on the keyboard. It's just really well laid out. So I love piano. I love all instruments, but I have this funny conviction that piano is like the home base
superior.
Of all music. It's the home base of all music.
I'm always very jealous of piano players. Like when I think of like superior musicians, I'm always like, piano players. I'm just so jealous of the facility and the.
It's just it's such a great, and I think maybe the reason why I love piano so much is I'm a huge chord guy. I love chords. I think it's so overlooked what chords do to a song. Like everyone loves to, you know, talk about the melody and whatnot, but it's the marriage of the melody with the chords that give you that body to, you know, that experience, you know. And so the chords to me on piano are so much more accessible. On a guitar, you've got 5 frets and then the interval starts over. So you've got, you know, E string and then up 5 frets, you got A, and then that's the second string, then up 5 frets from that, you got D, which is the third string. It's really confusing to think of music in that staggered pattern. So it's not very conducive. I mean, obviously you can do it. But like to me, it was really beneficial to learn piano as a kid. So I did that as a kid for 3 years. And no joke, literally Guitar Hero was like the spur that made me want to like pick up guitar. So I picked that up when I was like 12. My dad showed me a few chords, and just kind of taught myself, and definitely felt like I had a natural leaning toward it. I remember my brother one day was like, you're pretty good at guitar. You should like keep playing. And so I just kept playing and just started writing songs. And again, like being in church was a great way to like experiment with that and like just play and get encouraged in that. So that was really good. But yeah, that just led to writing songs too, because I love songs, love artistry. So that guitar passion led to writing songs, and then the songs led to the artistry, and the artistry, you know, kind of led to the content thing, and it's all still happening. So that's kind of how it transpired. Yeah,
very cool. So I want to know a little bit about Nashville and what it's been like to grow up there, because it's quite different. I mean, I'm in Minneapolis and I'm a transplant, and you know, Nashville, I remember when Instagram first kind of started, and I first saw you and I saw many other people. I just kept running into like, there's another Nashville person. There's another Nashville person. There's another Nashville. Whether it's, and most people are, you know, that I've seen are just these killer players, and they're doing many different things in the industry. Now I'm seeing people move from LA to Nashville.
Yep. Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of people do that. And so what's that like? Because there's a lot of people in the industry there, and I've seen you even like collaborate with kind of all these different people. And so how does one come across making that connection with someone else in Nashville? So you're there and you do these collaborations. Are you getting hit up by random people? Because I saw, who did I see? Eric
Fortaleza?
No, blues player. Oh gosh, I can't. Eric.
Shout out to my buddy Eric Fortaleza. Love you, bro.
I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name. If I think of it, I'll let you know. But you've got a lot of, I might be getting his name wrong.
Wish it was Johnson.
No, yeah, right, yeah. No, I might be getting his name wrong. I'll look it up here when you're answering the next question.
Sure.
But so, are these things where people are reaching out to you? Did you notice a lot of these people prior, or is this completely from social media where it's like hitting each other up and just making these things happen? And you just all happen to live. There's so many people in Nashville. 100%. And you're like, hey man, you live in Nashville. Let's do this thing together.
Yeah, well, and some of my connection has been in LA too, because I spent a good amount of time there.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that.
But yeah, a decent amount. I try to fly out at least like 2 or 3 times a year for a good amount of time. But there, I mean, you're absolutely right. There's a ton of talent here. There's a lot of people here. Most of it for me, most of the connection happened because of social media. I mean, it's kind of shallow, but like when you have a large following like that, immediately people's eyes go up. And so it's a help. But hopefully, you know, again, like it's not about that. Like my conviction has always been like, I want to contribute something, and maybe I don't think of it like this, but I am always driven to get it as good as I can. You know, I don't know that I'm a perfectionist, but I want to like make it something that I enjoy. And I think my taste is kind of hard to please sometimes. And so that's driven me to get the content or the song or whatever it is as best as I can get it. And then I'm fully proud of it. So I think that for me, hopefully has been the thing that's been, I I think the door opener in, connecting with some people is saying, hey, I want to do good work. I've got the following and whatnot. And mostly, people just want to, meet and hang out. And on Instagram, it's super easy. Just DM people. And I've made so many friends that way, So, hopefully, for me, I've hoped that the work I do speaks for me and not just like the following number or who I've worked with. I don't think that can change, because so long as you start to glide on just the numbers and the people who follow you, then you're going to get lazy with that. So it's got to be about the art. It's got to be about the content, the songs. But yeah, just I've cold DM'd people before. I've gotten responses from them, have made stuff happen. I've had people hit me up, and then it just kind of falls in my lap, and it's really cool. And you never know, like you meet a random friend and they connect you with this person. It's just, that's how the music industry is, how any industry is really, but definitely in music, it's about the hang, it's about meeting people. And a lot of these people become your friends too. And it's not just a business relationship, but you get to know them, and then, you work together for the first time, but then the next time you get coffee and catch up because you're friends. And so, but yeah, I love Nashville, born and raised here. Like I said, they call you a unicorn if you're from here and you do music. I don't know why that's a thing, but I'm a unicorn. It's rare. It's rare that you're from, stay here to do music. So yeah, I've loved it here. Good food, good people. It's small but big at the same time. It's a small town, and a lot of people know each other here. I mean, if you look at it on a map, I mean, it's like tiny compared to LA, but I mean, it really punches above its weight class, as far as it being in the same realm of songwriting towns like London, LA, New York, Nashville. Those are the four, So if you want to do anything in entertainment, I love that little Nashville is like a tiny stop along the way that people deeply respect. Because it's, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, it's the songwriting capital of the world. Songs are born here. A lot of entertainment is made in LA, but Nashville is known for songs and music. So I've loved that being my passion and my gifting in life has been like, this has been such a great place for me to be. I've thought about moving a couple times, but it's been like, I've always kind of come back to be like, no, there's so much for me here, and I really love it here. So as long as I get to travel and I get to scratch that itch, get to, go to LA or go to New York or, see more of the world. Like I do love being here. So I think that's probably my plan for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, man, it's kind of there's so many people who try to get out of their hometown, their small town. And for me, like typically for a lot of people, it's because there's lack of opportunity, but when something's there, like,
yeah.
Because like as an adult, as an adult, it's like, I mean, I wish that like there was more opportunity back where I was from. Cause like I'd see my family more often and all that good stuff. And like, maybe I would have kept in touch with friends better from back home.
Sure.
But because I was like, there's nothing here. I'm from Iowa. So I was like, well, I'm not staying here. So, and Minneapolis was the next closest town. And I was like, Prince, Minneapolis, Music City.
Cool.
Let's
Minneapolis
go.
is cool. I just went for the first time last year. Really enjoyed it.
Hopefully it didn't come at this time of year.
When did I go? I went in September.
Well, there you go. That's not too bad then.
Yep.
It's brutal right here. It's there's like 2 feet of snow in my backyard right now.
Wow. Wild.
Yeah. And it's just the beginning. It's what, January 9th or something. It's like, so there's going to be more.
Wild.
So to kind of set up a question for those people who are interested in Nashville, what advice would you have for people who maybe want to move to Nashville, make some sort of career happen in Nashville, and what misconceptions or things you'd like to point out to people about Nashville that maybe some people don't know? Because
Nashville is not just country. Sorry, go ahead.
I knew you were going to say that. And I think that's a good thing to talk about. I think the people I've been referring to aren't that I've said, oh, I see all the people I know or I've seen them go there. I don't think any of them are country. Maybe a couple, obviously, because, so maybe speak to that a little. Like, what do you have for people like, oh, I really want to go and pursue music in Nashville? Yeah. How big of a thing is this for someone to do that, or what advice would you have for them?
Well, you can definitely do it here, and people do that because it's been proven that you can do it here. I mean, it's a smaller town, but there is a lot of people's legendary careers have started here. I will say one bit of advice I would give is use social media. If you don't like it, get used to it. Try to make it work, because I can think of a lot of friends, and one in particular who I had conversations with, who he's kind of a quiet soul. He's totally committed to his instrument. He's an amazing player. And he was just this hidden gem that me and my buddies found, or my buddy kind of got connected with him, but he got plugged into this local writer's night, started playing guitar. I'll just say his name because he knows it's true. Mike Gannon, a buddy of mine, Mike Gannon, amazing player. He was so opposed to doing the social media thing, you know, and his temperament, just knowing who he is. I totally understood why. He's kind of a private guy. He's chill, you know, not really the content, look at my life kind of guy. But in this day and age, you really want to use that to leverage, to show people, to get out there and show people what it is you can do. And now that he's done that, I mean, his platform is really starting to grow. And I've had friends of mine ask me, hey, do you know Mike Gannon? Can you connect me with Mike Gannon? I'm like, yeah, I know Mike Gannon. I'm like, you know, so he's a beast. It's amazing that like his talent didn't get to see the light of day until he started, well, first off, connecting with the right people. That's the first way you do it. But then also he's really benefited from what I can see from his Instagram. It's really grown because he's gone, oh, there's a benefit to this. I should step in here and show people what I can do. So he's a great example. Go follow him too, because he's an amazing player. But another thing about him is he's really dedicated to his craft. He's a great player. He's paid his dues, and now he's ready to shine. You know, he's got something of value to offer people. So don't be afraid of social media. You know, use it in the way that is genuine to you and that people can connect with. That would be my first advice. But as far as Nashville goes, yeah, dude, just come. I think the great reason why people are moving here is because it's an affordable city where there's lots of creativity. People are really chill. Small town traffic is not as bad as LA. It's getting worse, but it's not as bad. And there's tons of music being made here, you know? So like, and another cool thing about Nashville is it's a great nest for artists, and a lot of artists go and tour from here. It's like a very good hub, because I think my dad even told me this. He said, if you draw something like a 300-mile radius around Nashville, or what is it? It may be a little more than 300, but there is a great drivable radius, a one-day radius drive where you can go and tour to an insane percentage of the total population of the states. I'm not going to say exactly what it is, going to be wrong, but the point is, in a day's drive, you can get to New York in 17 hours, maybe even less, maybe 15, 16 hours. You could drive there, play a show the next day, come back, within 3 days, or so. But even just the point is, like, within Nashville's reach, there is a lot of the population of the US. So that's a great touring hub for that reason. But then, also, it's just like, I think there's an atmosphere here that's really homey that LA does not have. And I love the LA atmosphere because it's very fast paced. There's so much going on. I feel like I've said this before, but I feel like you can kind of get done, in one LA day, like 2 or 3 Nashville days worth of work. Cause it's just, there's something about being out there. It's just insane. And so that's why I'm really intentional about trying to, go out there every now and then just to connect with people, go out there for inspiration and content and whatnot. But I love Nashville because there's a peaceful atmosphere here that's totally the opposite of LA. That's really nice for creating from a peaceful place. That's something that's kind of been my experience. Is there's a calmness here that LA does not have. And that may not be some people's cup of tea, but it's really refreshing to always come back here to me. I always come back home here and I go to LA, do the LA thing for a week or so, a week or two, but then come back and I go, I'm home, and it feels like home. Yeah. So I love that about Nashville. Great food, Nashville hot chicken. There's, I could go on and on. I'm a big foodie? Nashville fan. So, but yeah, big foodie. Yeah. So there's all sorts of good stuff here. I could go on and on. Obviously for me, my family's here, so that's a huge benefit to me here. Really blessed to have that. But for me, I'm really glad to be able to bounce back and forth between both cities, but Nashville's been it for me.
Yeah, I think you made a good point in the fact that it's just in general, a good hub that's kind of centralized to where most of the population is in the country.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you did want to start doing something, it'd be fairly easy to throw together a tour, even if you were just starting out with a group or whatever, because within stone's throw, it's like, there's a bunch of towns in Ohio right there, exactly Cleveland, Cincinnati, Dayton, and, and Indianapolis isn't too far away. All those towns are all there. Like, you're on the West Coast, you do the West Coast thing. And if you're local and you don't have much money, I mean, you're either paying out the ass to continue further in or you're done. And then even like, you know, like Minneapolis, like we're just like off. And you were kind of
you guys are way up there.
It's way up there. And even Chicago is like 7-hour drive from us, which isn't bad, but that's the closest thing. Milwaukee's 5, Milwaukee's 5, but we're like at the edge. So it can be a little difficult. Granted, you're still in the Midwest, so you really just go southeast and then come back. Yeah. So not too bad, but that's really interesting about Nashville. It's and you know, I've always thought, and I've told even students of mine in the past, like, you know, those are the 2 cities. Go to Nashville, go to LA. Like, if you want to get out of here, that's where I would have gone had I actually left.
I would. This is kind of a hot take, but I feel like even less and less I've been hearing that New York is even in that conversation. I've had like a lot of people. Not much in that conversation. I've in my experience. I don't know. I would love for someone to. I don't know who's the chief authority on that or anything, but I feel like a lot of people I've been noticing have either been moving here or LA. You know, and you
or Austin.
But the beauty. No, I would shoot that down so fast.
Really?
Who lives in Austin? You can. But here's my point. Oh, can you hear me? It's all right.
I got you now. Yep.
Hey, let me know if I need to plug. I can plug in. Ethernet.
No, it's all good.
Stronger signal if you need, but
the Austin thing, I guess. I just not saying that you would go there. I'm just saying that seems to be where people are flocking as well.
The reaction you got from me on the Austin thing was, Austin's a great city. I actually really enjoyed my time there. I spent a couple days there. It was so cool. But as far as like the music scene though, there it does not compare to Nashville. Like as far as like the opportunities that you can have, it's the live music capital of the world. But I think a lot of people would fight you on that. Given my experience, and I know it's here, having been there, I didn't really see that to be the case. They have South by Southwest, but you know, I would definitely say if you're wanting to do music and you want to get around people just for the you know, person to person connection, you got to be in LA or Nashville. That's like a given to me. But what I was going to say was, no matter where you are, though, it's pretty amazing that you can do most of what you need to do online. So it really, you can do it from anywhere, but as far as the in-person connection, you know, if you're wanting to benefit from that and what you do requires that, you know, those are the 2 cities, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's only so much you can do, I think, in other parts of the country. Like even here, like, you know, with Prince being gone, I mean, I think that's where a lot of people maybe latched. And I'm probably, you know, talking out my ass right now. And because there's probably people who are like, what? You don't even know what you're talking about. But I mean, I felt that when I was here, when he was alive, that there was this kind of like this aura always at any given moment. And, but maybe that's why people stuck around here. Maybe that's why, there's plenty of stuff happening, and it's
really interesting, man, how music is in the water in some places. Like you think about Muscle Shoals, there's no reason there should have been a music buzz down in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, but like there was for some reason. And, you know, and Prince was a huge part of being, you know, cultivating that Minneapolis music scene up there, but it's definitely still alive. You know, I think some of the Wolfpack guys too have been, you could credit to some of them, what they've done up there, making that a hub and keeping.
Well, Corey, that's why. Corey's from here, and but Corey goes back and forth between here and Nashville. I know, and like his drummer Pitar. Sorry, my dumb dogs are just. Because one of them just yipped, so I think the other one like tried to play with them. So like Corey, I know is I don't know Corey personally, but like mutual friends and stuff. So, but I think if I'm not mistaken, he's located here, but then he goes back and forth between Nashville quite a bit. And I think Pitar, his drummer's down there now full time.
Pitar's a buddy of mine.
Oh yeah, I know Pitar. I went to school with Pitar.
Oh, okay, nice, cool. So you guys are friends.
I know Pitar well.
Okay, cool, nice.
Hey Pitar. So great guy, and I know he's down there now, and he moved from Minneapolis. But you know, it's interesting, and the reason I think I wanted to point some of those things out is because I think, you know, I had students when I was teaching at McNally Smith that were had these big ideas of what they wanted to do, and I'd be like, well, that is happening in LA. You should go to LA. And I'm like, if you want to do it, that's where you should be going. I was like, I teach at a college. I have this gig. I'm here. I was like, maybe things change and I'll go somewhere else. I was like, but like I got my gig and it's here. I was like, if you want that type of gig, you should go to where those gigs are. And I think that's a big important thing. Now, I don't think that, I think and maybe we'll agree or disagree. I think there needs to be, you know, some self, like searching of like, do I want to actually leave where I'm at currently?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a sacrifice to get up and then move across the country.
Totally,
so, you know, I think there's certain people where it's like, if you're single and you're trying to do music for a living and that's kind of the big goal, and that's what you talk about all the time. It's like, dude, go to where it's happening, go make it happen there.
Exactly.
Like there's no reason you need to be sitting here. Like you got a family and kids. I get it. Yeah. Stay here.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe like, you're like, I really don't want to leave my, you know, my family and friends. All right. I mean, to each their own, but you kind of gotta figure that out. And that's why I said it's so awesome. Like when you're like, oh yeah, I never left. And I'm like, I wouldn't have either. Like, that's like, you have a perfect scenario.
Exactly. I think I've been really blessed to have that, like have my family here, have music in the water here again. Like there's a scene here that's been really great. And I mean, even if I didn't have any of that, like you can still, most of the connection I've made anyway has been online. So it's great. Yeah, to me, as long as I get to travel, I'm happy.
There you go, man. Yeah. I mean, that's funny that you say that because I think that's so many people that are like, well, as long as I have the means to travel and go see stuff and see the world and see all these different things I want to see, then I'm happy. Cause like, that's me. Like I literally, like most of the stuff I do, like I do what I do for a living and I'm trying to build and grow and stuff. But it's funny that like, that's always in the back of my mind. It's like, I do it because I want to travel. I want to see things.
Hey, it's a great reason.
Especially as you get older. I don't know how old you are, but like you get
I'd be curious. How old do you think I am? I get this a lot.
How old do you think you are? Okay. So, so you mentioned when you started. I'm gonna guess mid-19. Carry the one.
you'll probably be a little wrong. So you might as well just throw a number out there.
I'm gonna guess 25.
Yeah, close. I'll be 28 this year.
Okay, dang it. See,
I look really young. My dad's like just turned 16. He looks like he's 40. He's still out there playing ultimate frisbee with us.
So when I first saw you and heard you talk and like your level of maturity, I was like, I think this guy's like closer to 30. And and then I just got in my head. I was like, because I've been wrong with people many times because I've had a couple guys where I'm like, oh yeah, you're like my age. You're like, I'm 22, and I'm like, oh
yeah.
And I'm like, Jesus Christ, you crush. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then you start feeling bad. So I went the opposite way. But you know, you have that would be my second guess.
It's something that's kind of annoyed me over the course of my life, but I've grown. Now I've grown into be like, oh dude, I'm gonna cash that in when I'm about 40, 50, 60. Dude, they're gonna be like, what?
I had a guy. So I just turned 35 and
nice. I wouldn't have been able to tell.
Yeah. Thank you. And I had a guy the other day on social media. He said, you need to slow down. You look like you're 55. And he was like dead serious. Some random guy.
You know what, dude? Age is just like, honestly,
I was like, okay.
Age, I think people give their age away by their zeal for life sometimes, you know? So I think, I just think like I often kind of gauge where people are at with like, what are you doing? Where are you putting your energy at? Like, not that everyone has to be energetic to stay young, but I don't know. I just think like age, the number of your age has almost no relevance. The older you get, it's like, let's just, what are you doing? What are you working on? What are you sharing with people? What value are you adding to other people's life? So
I guess that brings me to a question, because I know for me, it's changed over the years, and I've had different circumstances to, where it had to, but I wonder how your perception of the way in which you would like your career to go has evolved over the years. Because I know for me, it has changed quite a bit. It's turned from like notoriety, I guess, and being seen as this certain thing, as to actually shifting. Well, so it started to have fun, right? That's where it started. Have fun. And then it became this thing of like, I need to be seen as such and such. And then it's turned back to like, what am I actually doing? Like, what the hell am I actually doing? Like, not just like, what am I doing with my life? More of like, what do I do for a living? Like, what am I actually doing? That's like, I'm teaching, I'm sharing with people. I'm sharing music with people. So like, it became this thing of like, well, then I need to think more selflessly in the way that I approach my entire career. And it kind of shifted everything in my whole perception of how I approach music and my career in general, thinking in a selfless manner and less about like how I'm being perceived and more about like, oh, well, this will help you here. Let me give you this. And then the music,
adding value.
Yeah. And then the music
giving
on the
value.
side. Yeah. And then my music became more of like, I want to have fun with this. Like I want to make it fun, and I want to make it fun in a way that I can give it to someone and be like, I think you will enjoy this because I had a fun time making it, as opposed to like, look at this. Look at this. Look, let me hear this.
And what do you think of me?
But and that's been a big shift, I think, over the last few years. And I think mainly because as I get further into my 30s, I'm having, that thing of like, oh my God, like, what am I actually providing to people? So if you had any sort of, I guess, what's the word? I just said the word, evolution within your career in any way like that. I mean, obviously it's going to be different, but I don't know if you had a perception of like when you were 18, where you're like, this is what I'm doing. And now you're like, actually, I didn't want to do that. Or, you know what I'm saying? That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, honestly, a big part of it for me this past year has been really cool because I've grown up a Christian, but the past year and a half for me has been this question here exactly has been on my mind so much. Like I did not expect the change that I've had in the spiritual experience that I've had in the past year and a half with the Christian God of the Bible, and how some people, I've grown up in that culture and grown up in that bubble. And I've, any sentient human being worth their salt should ask questions and be like, is this true? Is this something that, like, if it is true, what does it mean? And so I've really been diving into that, like these past 2 years of just like being God, asking questions like, God, are you really there? If you're really there, this is serious stuff. Like then my music is going to be secondary to if this is the truth. And to be honest, I've not only been doing research, but I've been doing what the Bible tells me to do, which is draw close to God and he'll draw close to you, James 4:8 says. And so I've been doing that, man, like my whole desire has been changing. You just said something that made me think of this verse that's on my heart a ton lately, which is Philippians 2. It talks about Jesus being a servant. He was God, but dude, he came down and he was a servant to us. And that's exactly what you're getting at. That's why as humanity, we react to that truth, because it's a beautiful thing to serve others with your gift. And, and that's where that comes from. It comes from the example of Christ. So for me, my career now it's taken an interesting shift, and you could not have asked a more timely question, because that's exactly where I'm at. And if you followed me at all on Instagram, that's been very obvious to all of my followers that they're like, what? He's talking about God now? Like, what is this? And it's like I've just received some revelation or something. Like, I'm sure some people think I'm out of my mind, but it's not that, man. It's like, dude, like I'm experiencing something that is so scary true that I want to make sure I tell people about it, that like, hey, this is like, you can say what you want, but man, like I'm experiencing something that, and I know we all claim to have experiences and whatnot, but we test all things. Scripture says we hold fast to what is good and we reject what's harmful, but it's been changing me as a person and as a creator to be more others minded. And I think it's so great what you just kind of went into. That was so cool how that transpired. But yeah, dude, serving others is a huge part of it. Like, how do we serve other people to add value, not just in art and laughs and stuff like that, but how do we actually add peace to people's lives? How do we add love to people's lives? And for me, the answer comes from the gospel of knowing who Jesus Christ is. And for me, I'm wanting to write more about that, be more honest about that. But sometimes, there's a time to have those conversations and God orchestrates those in the right way. But to me, I just want to be open and just be able to be used wherever he wants me to be used, so if there's a time to talk about it, I'll talk about it, and I'm so excited to talk about it because it's like who I am now. But for me, it's been, okay, God's given me this skinny white dude in Nashville, a passion for funk music. Like, how does that work with the gospel? Like, would that be something that could even coexist? Like PB&J, like, I don't know if before that was ever a thing, someone think that can't be good together. Like, what if those two went together? I don't know. Like, just that's where my brain is right now. Like, okay, God, I have this passion that a lot of the world maybe doesn't want to hear about. And maybe, I understand that, but like, how do I add value to other people's lives through my music and even through what God is teaching me? So those are deep questions I'm having right now as just a human being, and my creativity is a huge part of me. So of course that's going to come out. So yeah.
One of the best things you can do as a musician is to protect your own hearing. I've been using these Eargasm high-fidelity earplugs for months now, and I really love them. They're nice and discreet, high quality, and they don't make any of the sound muffled. They let in the right frequencies that I need on gigs or at shows. You can get 10% off your order if you use code MSALO10 at checkout. That's my first initial M, my last name Salo, SALOW 10 at checkout to get 10% off your order at eargasm.com.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because even for people who'd be listening who aren't strong Christians or anything, I just still think there's so much truth within that idea of serving others. Because like even the most, because I first heard it, I shouldn't say I first heard it, obviously, because I grew up Christian too. I grew up Catholic, and you obviously hear that stuff. But I think when I first heard it in the business realm was when I was like, wait, what? Like these people who are hyper successful, like all of them are saying like, you have to be of service to others. You have to help others. That's the way that's like everyone you talk to. It's like, it just starts to be this like, this consistent thing between everyone. Yep. And then there's so many, I've discovered like, there are some, this is like going down a whole different, but that's okay.
I love it. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah. There are these other things I think come into life where it's like, I find that some of the biggest truths in life for happiness and success become helping others, being selfless and putting in that effort, but in a very genuine way. Like you don't just do it because you're like, well, I should, so I will. You got to do it in a way, because I think when you really start doing it, then you really start to think about how it's affecting people, and especially when you get the feedback, that helps. You get excited about it, and then you start to do better, and you start to one up, and you start to provide more value because you want them to have the value, as opposed to thinking like, well, I should be providing this value. No, you're going like, they deserve this value and I'm going to give it to them. Yeah. And then that kind of comes down to, there's so many other things too, like keeping open-minded about certain things, because having a closed mind and not being able to kind of explore these thoughts, you shut off, you stop things at the door. And when you stop things at the door, it actually can prevent you from becoming someone who is selfless and being of service to others, because you can get jaded. You can be very, cynical, and those things for me kind of are in that, for lack of a better term, closed-minded category, cynicism and that stuff, because in a way you're stopping something at the door, which I think is you're closing it off. So I've noticed that can be part of the whole story too, of trying to provide value of like, it's really easy to just, if you have an open mind to like, oh, I could do this and this would help people. As opposed to like, it's really easy to go like, well, someone else does that, or I don't do that, or whatever. And I think it's really cool that, because I've been thinking about this a whole lot this past year. And honestly, I made this shift about a year ago, and I'm like finally going, oh, my career is back on track and starting to go down the direction I wanted to go. Cool. Because I worked at a college for a bit. And that was my thing. And then there was a for-profit, it went under. So I had to start over essentially like 3 or 4 years ago, like start from the ground up. I mean, I had gigs and I had students, but I essentially had to like rethink the path. Like, well, now I'm 31, like, and this job that was my path was gone. So, kind of coming to that realization, because the college was great, but I never thought of it as like serving others. I loved it. And I loved teaching the students there, and I loved to guide them, but it was still like, this is my job. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the job's a job. It's just gonna be that way sometimes, but yeah.
Yep. That's cool, man. That's awesome that you talked about that. So,
I think another piece of that too is, for me at least, the surprising part for me has been the content piece. I didn't really expect, and I think this is just a sign because of the times, I didn't really expect for my route to be so social media driven, but I think that's just been because I'm really glad it turned out that way, because now it's the thing. I would rather, it'd be that way than, what I was hoping which would happen, which was make records and tour, and do the, what John Mayer did, which is, I think he was really probably the last generation of artists, or close to, where that was the thing to do. You just made records and you toured, and sold shirts. But soon after his generation, it's now our generation where, and he's still making music, obviously, but I think you know what I mean? Like, I know the following years were when this new breed of artists came about, where they have to make content now, or they're at least wanting their fans are wanting to engage with them, right?
Yeah.
So that's been really interesting to you talked about evolution. Like that's been an evolution I've been caught up in, of like, okay, this is kind of the wild west out here. Like how do we actually like navigate this? Because I think my friend of mine, Jack Conti, he runs Patreon. He founded Patreon, and he's founding member of Scary Pockets as well. So he's this is his world. Like
he founded
funding.
Patreon, the guy who does Scary Pockets.
Yep.
I didn't know that. I didn't.
Jack Conti. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know he was in. Okay. Yeah.
I really trust his insight, because this is like his realm, like social media and helping creators get funded.
Is he in Nashville?
Right.
There?
So no, he's in LA. Or no,
Okay.
actually, I think he's in San Francisco. He goes to LA often.
Okay.
But you know, he was saying the other day, he posts all sorts of stuff on his Instagram about like his perspectives on this wild westness of social media and internet, how we're like only 20 years in really, and we're still trying to figure out the etiquette, because, you know, like you can think back to all sorts of practices that we did as humanity, and it took us a while and had to kind of trial and error, figure out the best way to use said technology or practice. And I think that's totally true with the internet, that we're only like, 5 or so years in as a society. And like how now we're learning about the consequences of over consuming social media or content, like the anxiety and the depression that it can bring and isolation that it can bring, because you think you're connecting with people, but you're not, and it's not the real thing. And your buddies are stuck to their phone, and it's a mess. And so all of that, I think we're learning, even as creators and artists, okay, how do we do this in tandem with the artistry, with making songs, So it's been really cool to be part of that. And I've tried to embrace that and be like, okay, there may be some here. This is a really great time to strike some gold, and I feel like maybe there's even further gold to come the next couple of years as far as artistry goes.
Totally.
And Jack's on the forefront of that. He's one of those people who I have in mind of like, he's probably going to be one of those guys. And, it could be any of us. There's going to be ideas that are thrown out in the next decade that I think are going to solidify the creator in having a more stable income and having a better connection with their fans. So that's going to be really interesting to see.
I think that's one thing that people need to understand, is that it's still so early.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is still so brand new. Like we're in that phase of like, this stuff is coming out of the woodwork, and there's a lot of it happening at once, but only so many people will stick over time. But I think even people who stick over time become people who actually stuck to it, the long game. So they were like,
it's true. Yeah.
The long game's a big thing, man. I've seen so many people, I don't want to name names, but like I did see a guy who had a Patreon going, killer player, started a Patreon. And I was like, oh, I'm thinking maybe I'll sign up for that. And then one day it was gone. And I was like, why did he stop doing it? So all I could deduce it to is like, maybe he was just like, yeah, screw this. Like I can't, maybe he couldn't keep up with it. Or maybe he was just like, I'm not seeing the results I need to see, which that's what I'm used to seeing from a lot of people. Like, I'm not seeing the results I wanted to see. I'm done. And people do that with social media too. I mean, as you know, and it's easy for, I think, us to be like, keep at it. Cause you're like 150,000 and I'm like at like 90 something. And, but at the same time, there was a period for probably you too. I know mine was pretty long where like, there wasn't any growth. I was just doing it cause I was like, I should be doing this. I should be providing people with stuff.
Sure.
And then at some point, and you whittle down to the thing that like, you're like, oh, this is people that people see value in. So, I think I'm happy to do more of this, cause I think it's helpful or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, just an interesting thing.
I think the people who are fortunate to have longevity are the people who have had their passion intersect with their talent and people's need of said talent and passion.
Yeah.
So it's kind of those three intersections. Hard
work too.
Yeah, you gotta have hard work, of course. But yeah, I think I always try to ask people, I always try to prod at their passion level and be like, do you really, like, I have had friends ask me about, I want to get more into production. It's like, everyone's asking, it's like, I need to start producing for myself. And like, maybe you should, that'd be a good thing. But to me, honestly, maybe that would help, but to me, I think the better question is, what are you passionate about? And if producing is not on that list of things that come to mind immediately, don't do it. Hire someone who's better at it, who is more passionate, who's going to, be worth the money to have a better product come out rather than you trying something that you're just going to give up because you're frustrated. Because the things that you're going to go on to be really successful at are the things that you passionately love so much that you can't help do it. You're just going to do it because you find yourself going back to it at 3 a.m. because you love it, and you're going to do it whether or not someone's paying you to do it. So I think you find that thing you're passionate about. Hopefully you've, honed that gift, that craft, into something valuable that you can add to other people's lives, and hopefully people want it. So
yeah, that's a good point. That I actually recently had a conversation with, I'll just say a loved one. And that was something that came out of my mouth. I was like, doesn't sound like you really want to do that, actually.
Yeah, and I think people need to hear that, rather than them waste their time.
Yeah, and it came from a place of like, I heard the story, I was told the ideas and what the person wanted to do. I gave some insight. Then there was like, this is going on and I can't really do it because of that. I can't really do it because of that. And then it got down to the point of like, well, it doesn't really sound like you want to do that. And that's not, that's fine. It's totally fine. Like, but I think when you come to the conclusion, I think it's really important. Like, I think really sitting down and thinking, well, there's a couple things though there too. I think there's a couple things to unpack, because it's like, you could sit down and talk about this thing you want to do and then outline how to do it, and then try to pursue it like this. And like, maybe you put in no time, you put in no effort over the course of a month. And it's like, did you really want to do it? Maybe you didn't. But sometimes I think it's also good to put in perspective of like, okay, imagine yourself 20 years from now, 10 years from now, and you didn't do the thing you've been wanting to do. So you have this big goal, this big idea. How are you going to feel? So do you think you'll be very upset?
Scary. It's scary.
Yeah. Or do you think you won't care? Or where do you see yourself in 10 years? Maybe that's a better question. Like, where do you see yourself in 10, 15, 20 years? And if that thing that you think that you should be doing or have an idea of doing isn't part of that equation, or if it's a really small part of that equation, it's like, why is it even there? Because you could be like, well, I want to do this, and then I would like to play a show once a month. And it's like, you just acted like you wanted to do music so bad, and that's your goal 10 years from now is to do a show a month. I was like, it doesn't sound like you really want to do it.
Yeah, sure.
But if someone was like, oh, I'd really love to have like a bunch of albums out and be playing every weekend and stuff like that, I'd be like, well, then you need to get going. And you need to figure out how to get going on that. And that comes down to like scheduling it into your weekly and trying to, or maybe you've discovered that you don't really like it in the process.
Yeah. Which is totally fine too.
Yeah. It's fine.
I think it's really healthy for us all. And I say this for me too, like to continue to evaluate like what is success for you. Yeah. Because I think if you try to boil it down to its most concentrated conviction, your most concentrated conviction, the reason why you do what you do, a lot of it, you can kind of start to see maybe some of it comes from just like wanting to be recognized. And then you go, okay, but what's deeper than that? And I've been tapping into like, okay, why do I really want that? Like I've heard a lot of stories where people's lives get ruined because they only get recognized. They have no private life, so it's like, for me, I think I'm no, super mega famous musician or anything, but I've had a fair amount of success with my music to where it's shown me, okay, this really isn't like the thing. This is, as I've gotten into it and I've experienced people being inspired by what I do and people complimenting me and even recognizing me a few times, like that's been really cool and flattering. But like now, like what is it about? Like it's about, like you said, it's about others. How do we, share what we're doing to impact them? And to me, honestly, the whole game is kind of a little futile to me. Like it's all going to go away at the end of the day. So like really it comes down to, okay, that opens my eyes to a bigger perspective. Like, why am I here on earth? What am I doing here with my life? Like what are the things I actually want to communicate through my music? So I think that once you're thinking that way, I think you're on the way to thinking a lot more productively and a lot more fruitfully in your ambitions to create and why you're going to create,
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point, because I think for younger musicians, it's really easy to get sucked into like, I want to do music. And then they're just so down that path that they forget about the things in life, like actual life. Like you think about,
it's true.
Like you really do. I did that a lot. Like I forgot about actually like, what the hell do I like to do outside of music in life, so and true. And what do I want to do? And you said traveling. And for me, like, we like, especially now, it's like, gosh, like again, and I mean, people who are older than me are going to be like, "Cheers, shut up." But as I get older, the older I get, the more I'm like, wow, like, I have this many years left. If I want to see these places that I've always wanted to see in my entire life, I want to see so many freaking places. If I had the money, I could easily go to a new place every year and love it and just be like, this is the best. But then you're like, oh my God, how many is that? That's like maybe 40 more. And I'm like, geez, that's not a big number.
Yeah.
And
you
start to realize that, and then you start to realize things outside of that, just life in general. Do you want kids? Do you want a family? Do you want a spouse and all that stuff? Do you want to be part of the community? Do you want to be, like in your case, be part of the church, and be working with that? Or, all these things come up as you get older, and you start to realize like, oh, I can't just like, be like, so not pigeon. What's the word I'm looking for? Like tunnel vision of music.
Tunnel vision. Yeah.
You have to start thinking a little bit outside of that. So
for sure.
Yeah, man. Great conversation, man.
Yeah, man. Really enjoyed it.
I appreciate it. So a couple more things, because we are this creating in life and music thing. I think, I guess not a couple more things, just like one or two more questions. So one thing I think a lot of musicians wonder is, and I think we talked about it a lot here and didn't even address it, is how do you think one stays motivated? So how do you keep motivation rolling, even though like maybe life does come into play and you are going like, wow, like, I just had a week straight of X, Y, or Z, and I really just love to sit on the couch the rest of the day. And I know I shouldn't. How do I, what do I do?
This is where I love like what the Bible says about following what your flesh wants to do. And what it's saying is it has eternal consequence. It's a different context, but it still can be applied in the practical. And the practical is this: if you follow the desires of your flesh, it's going to lead to destruction. You follow what your flesh wants to do, what you want to just sit on your couch and watch Netflix or waste your time watching YouTube, then you're going to waste your life away, and ultimately you have to ask yourself, like, what is it you want to do? What do you feel like, even a deeper question, what do you feel like God's put you on this earth to do? That's what I would ask. But for me, I think it's been really cool to consume music and stay inspired that way, because if I'm not listening to other people, I'm not being fed. If you're going to produce anything, you have to consume. That's just a basic fact of biology. But I get like 3 songs out of one Bob Dylan song that I listen to, that when you asked the question, I knew that was immediately my answer. Like it usually always is. To produce and stay motivated, you have to consume. Stay up to date with what's going on the platforms you're wanting to be a part of. It's
inspiration, essentially.
Yes, inspiration. Yeah. You need the gasoline in order to keep going, and that's by listening to other people. It has never failed for me. Like I know, and really the discipline for me is like, okay, getting myself to keep listening to new stuff, because I actually kind of like to stick to what I know. And I have listened to the same records and still have not worn them out for the past, decade. Yeah. I just love what I love. And I do the same thing. I have to get myself to branch out and be more intentional about that. But for me, consuming is a huge part of staying motivated. So that would be my, suggestion to anyone struggling with that. And then also, but to be honest, like you said, I've been thinking about this too. You have a life. So maybe you do need to go take a nap, just chill out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I honestly, I love what Michael Jackson did in his career, but I'm sad for the existence that he had to live in some respects, for being so enslaved to his career that he missed out on some beautiful parts of life that he tells you about in interviews. And I go, man, like it cost him that much, and you don't get to where he got without sacrificing a lot. And he sacrificed a lot, and he sacrificed probably more than anyone I can think of. Yeah. And I go, is that the life I want to live? And maybe not to that extent, but you have to count your own success. If you're doing what you love and it pays the rent, that's success. Tom Petty said.
Yeah.
So exactly. I think it makes it a lot more simple when you think about it that way. Not biting off more than you can chew. I think those are a few things that'll keep you motivated. Yeah.
And I think, especially when you have these goals and ideas, like it just seems so sensible to be like, well, why wouldn't I have 5 hours in the evening after work. Why wouldn't I spend the majority of that doing this thing that I really want to do and the thing I really love? Like, even if it's like not the most productive session, like just get yourself in the session, like say it's practice, you're practicing guitar, like just put yourself in the chair, put the guitar on your lap, and maybe some days will be better than others, you know? And using, when I was in college in music school, that's what I would do. I would be like, I don't know if I really want to practice. YouTube favorite guitar players. And I would just search them and watch and be like, yes. And then I would go to practice.
Yeah, man. That's great. That's exactly it.
Because you look and you go like, well, I want to play like that. Like, and then you're like, oh, dang, I can play like that. I will play like that. And then you like transcribe their stuff and you're like,
and I even think like
cool.
as you're listening to that video, probably you're picking up on the certain licks they do and you go, oh, I want to learn that lick.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's a great way to do it. Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's a great thing. Like you said, you listen to Bob Dylan. I think if your thing is songwriting or whether it's, the instrumental side or the lyric side, I think, knowing where you get inspiration, sitting yourself down in the chair, the work chair, and pulling up the inspiration when you're not feeling like you really want to do it. I think that really helps. And then you go like, oh, what if, like James Taylor was just on, I don't know if he was just on there, but there was this clip going around, I think of him on Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel, one of the guys. And he was like, yeah, I took a Beatles song and used it as a template. And I made my own song out of this Beatles song. And he's like, it sounds nothing. He'd said the song.
Template as in like what, the structure? Of the progression of the like verse, chorus, verse two, chorus two.
I don't know. I assume because he didn't really get too much of the deal. It was a clip. It was a broken up clip. And he was like, yeah, I just, I took the chords and I rearranged everything. And I think maybe I'm assuming the form is what he meant. And then he like did new lyrics and new melody. And he's like, but I used it as a template. And then I had my own song and it sounds nothing like that, but it was a good place to start. And I was like, cool, James fucking Taylor. Like, geez, like that's from him. And I was like,
yeah, man. We all steal from each other.
Yeah. That's such a cool thing. And I was like, that's what you do. You sit down, you put on a record, you get the inspiration rolling, and then you go from there. And like I said, some sessions when you sit your butt down in the chair won't be as good as the other ones. You are exhausted. But other days you'll get excited, you'll get into a flow, and then you get going, you make stuff.
It's true.
Cool, man. So last question, because I know we're getting to the hour and a half mark here, and I know you're a busy man, got stuff to do, I'm sure. And so if you could narrow it down to like one solid piece of advice for someone who wants to make a career in music in general, in any facet, what would that be? Maybe a message, like one message, one piece of advice, one like.
I got it.
Yep.
So this is an experience I'll never forget. When I was just starting out playing music, I had a gig with some buddies who had hired a drummer who was very professional. He'd been touring with a really successful band at the time. And so for him to come and join us on this show was like, whoa, dude, we're getting Drew Schroyer. I'll name him, a buddy of mine. He was someone we looked up to, and having him on the gig just made us all like, whoa, dude, this is legit, So when Drew joined us, I was a little like, oh, this guy's like a professional. He does this for a living. Like, I want to be professional. I want to show up, rehearse, I want to match his level of caliber. And, so when we showed up there, I'd never forget this. He asked me if he could help me get my cases inside. He said, you need a hand getting some cases in? I was like, he's asking to help me. Again, we've been talking about, like being a servant to others, being others minded and not valuing yourself above others. And yeah, that made a huge impact on me, that someone as successful as him, and even I throw my buddy Kurt Henderson, the buddy who I made that first video with on Instagram and it blew up. Same thing with him, just, a successful guy, but a good hang and just a good person. If you remember that like music is about relationships and benefiting the other person and, seeing how you can help them, you're going to go a long way. And the other side of that coin is, be good at what you do. So if you're good at what you do and you've honed in on your craft and you've put in your 10,000 hours, and people know that they can, relax around you and that you're a good hang and they want to be around you and they want to call you back because you were kind and help them do what they are passionate about doing, then there'd be no reason that someone should not offer you the gig or the job or whatever, So I think it's those two things, be kind to people and be really good at what you do.
Yeah.
And I think in that be kind to people, that's also, if you dig down in that, that's adding value to people, making sure that they know that you are valuing them, that you want to contribute something that's worth their time. You know, that's on that side of the coin. But
yeah, man, you want to break the ice at a gig or at a rehearsal when you're new to the band or something. Offer help.
Yep, it's true.
I've done that. I do a lot of gigs where it's a random roster of musicians, and we just get thrown on the gig, and you show up, and sometimes you don't know people. And I remember there are several times where I was like, "You need help with that?" Like, especially if it's like someone that I sort of know. I'm like, "Oh, I know who that guy is."
Yep.
And he sort of knows. I'm going to help him. So I'll be like, "You need help with that?" He's like, "Oh, yeah." Like they're like, I think that's the best way to break ice.
Yep,
if you're in a music situation and it's a bunch of people you don't know, offer help. You want to do that, like, or
so
you go to a gig, and like if you go to like if you're new to town, go watch some bands. When they're done, go offer. Don't be drunk as hell.
Yeah.
Go offer the band help. Like, go offer the drummer. I have a drummer in town too. I just moved here. You need help unloading, like, or whatever, like that. Maybe they'll say no, and you're like, okay, sorry. But
that is exactly how my dad eventually went on to become head of A&R at a record label in the 90s. And that, what you're saying right there, is exactly what he did to get where he got. He started no foot in the music industry at all. He went down on Music Row back in the early 80s and said, "Hey, can I help you all move some boxes?" They were moving boxes into this one building. And I think that was Dick James Music. That's how he got a job at Dick James Music. And
that's so awesome.
Boom, for the next 2 decades. Yeah, that's it, helping people.
Yeah, exactly. Big time. And the reason I say don't get drunk is because I know when bands are done, it's the end of the night. So that's why I say it, because some people are like, "Oh, I did it and it didn't work." I'm like, well, yeah, you're on the job. So
yeah, exactly.
You have to treat that as a job then too.
Yep,
cool,
right.
man. I really appreciate you hanging out. This has been great. I hope
man. Enjoy the conversation.
Nice insight to hopefully people listening and I think that really hammering home the being of service thing. I'm a huge proponent of that, and I think that's great that you're on that
so good
mindset and
totally
track.
agree. Yes, sir.
Cool, man. Well, I'd love to do it again sometime, and I appreciate you being on. And I got to say, last thing before I forget is that I think my favorite video of yours is the conversation.
Music is a language. Yeah.
And then
dude, that's so funny.
It's so I went back so many times. I was like, that was so spot on. Like of like the inflections.
You do not want to know how long that took to write. It took me 2 days. I literally sat on my bed. Well, here's the thing. I got flown out to LA to write some content for Pickup Music as a company. Yeah. So I was flown out there to write some content for them, and I didn't have any ideas. Like for the whole week I was out there, I showed up like with maybe one idea. I was like, okay, I can bank on this. But then it was like 2 or 3 days before we were going to film, and I was like, oh shoot, what am I going to do? So I had this one idea. It was that one that ended up costing me like 2 whole days of prep, but it was so good that I was like, I've got to just keep seeing where it's going.
It was great, dude.
And I made like a mock version to show the guys at Pickup what I was thinking. And even that one I thought was really funny. I still kind of want to post it because it's just me conversing with myself and practicing the shtick. But I ended up having to do it with Jake. So Jake, I had to kind of sit down with him and be like, hey, this is exactly what it is. We went note by note, chromatic notes. He said Long John Silver's. We had to work on like that bend on making sure that sounded like Long John Silver's. And like, maybe we should get some salad then. It's like we had to get, it took so much, but if we could wrap this up perfectly, that is a great example of put in the work and people like build it and they will come. Like that took so freaking long. Yeah. And honestly, all of the other content ideas that we did probably got washed away in the algorithm abyss. But that one, why did that one pay off? I think because there was so much effort put into it.
You put a lot of effort in that, and it was like, it was spot on.
Yeah. And even the editing afterward, like making sure the editing looks right. And even the audio, I paid attention to like compressing the audio the right way, make sure that it grabs people's attention when it comes on. So not to toot my own horn or anything, but that's a good example of when you put in the work on something and people can see that it's something of value. They go, "Ooh, I want to stick around for this," and share it with friends. So that's a good example.
The other one
that
comes to mind, not to keep you here, is just because it just came to mind that I thought was really great too, was the the Tarzan one you did with that vocalist like years ago
with Walker Burroughs. Yeah, that one was so crazy, dude. Yeah.
I thought
the joke was like taking it where no one ever thought it would go. It was like just a simple conversation starting, and then it just blows up into this like dramatic stage performance or something.
It's funny too, because like that's probably my favorite Disney movie of all time is the Tarzan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's got the best music. I mean,
it is. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to shout that one out too, because that one was the best. I probably watched that one so many times. So I was like, I love this song.
It's so funny.
So
yeah,
great.
I think I was like hardcore geeking out on that song. Or like obviously we've all known that song for years, but at that time, I for some reason was listening to it a bunch and just studying it, and I was like, dude, we should just cover this song. That's kind of how it came about.
That whole soundtrack is like the best. Anyway,
so good.
Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Until next time, all the best, man. And I hope you continue doing all the good work. And
definitely will, man. I appreciate the conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yep, for sure. All right, man. Cool. Have a great week.
You too. Take care.
You too.
If you'd like to join my Patreon to get your questions answered by the guests, then you can go to patreon.com/Mike Salo. There are several tiers there that you can take part in, and lots of different perks like pre-recorded guitar lessons or even one-on-one guitar lessons with me. There are live master classes every week for certain tiers. And again, you can go to patreon.com/Mike Salo to check that out.